My name is Gus Olson, and I've done day game for many years, which is an activity initiating conversations with women that you don't know in public setting with the goal of flirting with them and taking them out on a date. And in today's video, I'll talk about 3 ways how doing this activity has been more useful to curing my loneliness, anxiety, stress, and overall mental health than any other formal therapy that I have done. Number 1, it allows for a vulnerable conversation. It's widely known and discussed that most men and most people are very lonely nowadays. What's not widely discussed is how actually to deal with this loneliness. Now, in my opinion, there are 2 reasons why most people feel lonely. The first one, and the obvious one, is just that people don't talk to each other as much as they used to. Most people spend their time alone on social media or watching Netflix. But the less obvious reason why a lot of people feel lonely is that they're not able to be vulnerable and they have surface level conversations because they're afraid to be judged, they're afraid to be criticized, and they're just not able to talk about their emotions. And in this context, I don't think there are many more vulnerable activities and things you can do as a guy to walk up to a girl that you find attractive, tell her that you find her attractive, and just expose yourself to the situation and the possibility that she might reject you. In order to do this in a very authentic way, you need to be able to drop your ego, which is why most guys actually cannot do this because they constantly feel the need to protect themselves and their ego. However, once you learn how to be vulnerable in these kind of situations with women that you find attractive, it gets quite easy to be vulnerable with other strangers in less social pressure situations. For example, I often hear people say, I just need time to open myself up to someone. What they really mean is that they need time to get to know you, so they can minimize the probability that once they do, you won't be mean and reject them. Nowadays, I'm usually the first person to open myself up, whether I'm meeting friends, a girl, or any other social situation. And when I do it, other people feel safe to do it as well. And because of it, I feel really easy to connect with people around me. Reason number 2, it's the best way to meditate. Now, everyone knows the benefits of meditation, and the goal of meditation is to be present. Now, there are 2 ways that you can be present. You can try to focus on your breath, or you can literally forced to be present. Let's imagine a hypothetical scenario. You're walking down the street and you're thinking about all your little life problems and your mental issues, and suddenly you see a tiger down the road. What do? You would immediately forget all your little problems and you would focus on the threat directly in front of you. And this would happen automatically with no effort. Now, when you go up to a girl that you find attractive for the first time and expose yourself, it works a similar way. You immediately forget about all your little life problems because you're literally too nervous to think about anything else than the situation in front of you. When a lot of my students try for the first time to flirt with a girl in real life in this kind of situation, even though they're really nervous and initially maybe don't get too far in the interaction, after about an hour of doing this, they're usually in a very good mood. Why? Because talking to women they find attractive forces their brain to be present. This is the super underrated thing about approach anxiety. Most people see it as something bad, but I see it as a gift. Your brain treats it like a real threat, because in the old days, if you talk to the wrong person, you might actually get killed. Obviously nowadays, there's not an actual threat, but your brain doesn't see the difference. And because of that, it's literally forced to forget your life little problems and focus on the situation directly in front of you. When I started doing this, even though I was getting rejected a lot, I literally couldn't stop because I found it so addicting. It just put me in a very good mood. So if you have a lot of approach anxiety, great. You can use it for your advantage and literally get dates and meditate at the same time. And the reason number 3 of how it improved my mental health, I learned to separate myself from my emotions. It's been said many times, life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. Simple rule to understand, very hard to live by. Now, in order to be successful in day game, I had to learn how to live by this rule. I remember one day I got 10 rejections in a row. A lot of them were quick, I don't even want to talk to you type of rejections. And it would have been very easy for me to say, I suck, women don't like me, I'm not good enough. And in the beginning of my journey, I had a lot of these thoughts. But if you hold on to these thoughts, you don't last long in this kind of activity, so you're forced to change your thoughts. So instead, I started telling myself, I need to work on my approach. I must improve the way I flirt. No matter what I do, rejections are part of the process. Or even, if I get rejected, it means that I am taking action, which means that I'm on the right track. And when I would get a thought in my head saying, you suck, instead of believing it right away, I would ask myself, Is that true? Where is that thought coming from? Does believing this thought serve me? And I would learn to just drop it. And of course, when I learned to do this, I could transfer this kind of thinking into other areas of my life. If I had a tough month at work, instead of immediately thinking that I suck, I applied the same logic and it helped me get through the negative thought spiral. So these are ways of how approaching women in real life helped me deal with my loneliness, anxiety, and mental health. The reason that I found it so effective was that it was extremely practical. On the other hand, when I did formal therapy, I was just sitting in a room, often with someone who didn't really know me, doing theoretical mind exercises. Now, I'm not saying that therapy is useless. It has helped many people, and for me to make that statement would be just silly. And it did help me in some way. What I am saying though, that for me, day game and quote unquote rejection therapy was much more practical and yielded a lot more practical results in terms of giving me the right tools in order to deal with mental life challenges, rather than just simply talking to a therapist. However, it takes time and the right practice to get these kind of returns, and you must put in a lot of work and a lot of effort to get there. If you want further resources to help you on this journey, check the links in the description. As always, let me know your thoughts on this and see you next time.